Hello and welcome to Barb Talks. Today we're talking about a book that I've been reading called Now I Am Known by Peter, I think it's Mutabazi. I've been watching him online. He does various Instagram and YouTube type of shorts where he is interacting with his various foster kids, and he's just a really encouraging, kind man. And when I saw that he'd written a book in 2022, I thought, oh, that would be a good one to read during the summer. Below the title it says, How a Street Kid Turned Foster Dad Found Acceptance and True Worth. It is a storytelling way that wasn't the traditional way, like the Snow White, where all this drama happens and then she lives happily ever after with a prince, but you never get to hear the next story. It just ends after the trauma. With How I Am Known, what Peter does is he does give the background of where he came from as a very poor, abused child at home. He ran away to the big city in Uganda and was a street beggar for a while. And he was only 10, by the way, when he ran away from home. So he was living on his own as a 10-year-old in a big city that he'd never been in a big city before. But he talks about the freedom that he felt of not being abused. He would rather die at the hands of a stranger than die at the hands of an abusive father. Every chapter, he tells his story, and then he puts this positive, forward-thinking spin about it. He talks about what he's learned in each chapter and the adventure of taking each step, being willing to brave the unknown for a better chance. The willingness to watch and learn and survive, but also learn how to trust, learn how to befriend. He ended up having a sponsor. Somebody came to the market and saw him there as a street kid and offered him to pay for him to go to school. And he wasn't sure what this was all about because he'd lived enough life to know that a lot of times people will, with a smile on their face, are looking for ways to hurt you. So he wasn't sure if this was a real offer or not. So he told his friends, hey, I'm going to go with this man, and if I'm not back in 24 hours, you know what to do when he comes back to the market next time, basically. So he went with this man, and he did take him to a school, and there was beautiful grounds, and people are in their uniforms with shoes, stuff that he'd never had. He'd never had shoes before, and that they had food 3 times a day, and he'd never had regular meals before. That's what made him stay, was the food. He figured, if I can get 3 meals a day and not have to scurry around trying to get food, sold. That night he left to walk all the way back. His sponsor drove him way out to this school, but he walked all the way back to tell his buddies, this is the real deal, don't hurt this guy when you see him again at the market. And then walked all the way back to the school just in time for breakfast, and then he had his 3 meals a day. The stories, the depth of his figuring things out and learning new things. I liked that. I liked how he gave the viewer an opportunity to see life through his eyes, see the decisions that he made, to see how he navigated so many new realities, that his curiosity and his willingness to be open. One of the stories he told was when his sponsor invited him over to the house during the summer. The sponsor said, hey, I'm leaving for the night. Will you watch the house for me? Well, again, Peter is like, what does that mean, to watch the house? Well, the dad and the kids and the mom left to go out to dinner. Peter just happened to lean up against the wall and all the lights turned out. So he just went and sat on the couch in the dark. The father of the home came home and saw the lights out and turned them on and saw Peter sitting obediently on the couch in the dark. He said, well, what's going on? And Peter just said, well, I'm ready for my beating. And the father goes, well, explain. And Peter was just saying, I ruined your house. The sponsor said, let me show you how the light switches work. And then took him around and showed him, because he realized, oh, this street kid from a small village never dealt with electricity. He doesn't know. So those kind of things where Peter talked about how he wasn't sure if he was just going to flee because he knew the beating was coming and that he would be thrown out anyway. But instead, he decided he would stay and face and be a man, a teenage boy, be a man and give respect to the sponsor to say, I'm sorry I broke your things, I'll leave. But of course the sponsor didn't have him leave. He just grew even more attached to Peter as a person. At every stage he thinks, oh my gosh, this is so much better than the last stage. Because then he ended up you have to read the book, to hear all the good stories. But he ended up going to college in England. He ended up having a girlfriend that was well connected to embassies. He ended up meeting people he never thought he'd meet, but his kindness, his curiosity, and his willingness to learn was a magnet for people to want to help him. And he gave back tenfold for the help that he got. He ended up working for several different aid companies where he would go tell his story. And then people would then want to sponsor children, would want to donate money and time to help these war-torn area kids. So he was doing that kind of work, and he ended up in America working for a company. I think he worked for like Mercy Corps and a few others. He was told by a friend of his, and maybe the friend had just adopted a child that had been in foster care. And Peter had never heard of that before. He was an adult now, and he thought, well, this is America. There can't be children in need here. And this other new dad said, oh yeah, there's kids in the foster system that need fostering and sometimes are returned to their parents if the parents are in a hard time, and sometimes they need to be adopted. And so Peter, each step as he was giving back to the society that helped him, that's when it kind of hit his heart of going, well, I was a kid that didn't have anybody, and people stepped up to help me. How can I not step up to help other children in my new home of America? So he became a single dad foster parent. And that's how I first heard about him. I think there's actually a picture of him with his sons. If not, then you can find him all over the internet. But he's, I guess there's none in the book that have a picture of him with his kids. But he has fallen in love. He also tells the story of he was done with fostering for a while because it was ripping his heart out, because he'd love these kids and pour himself into them. And then, of course, they would be returned to their parents. And so he told the agency, he goes, just give me a break from fostering. I just need a break because this is tearing my heart apart. I just love these kids. And the agency told him, well, we've got this one other kid, and he was abandoned at a hospital. His parents adopted him, had him for years, left him at the hospital with a note saying, we don't want him anymore. This is an American kid that was just abandoned. And they said, can he just stay with you over the weekend? And Peter is like, oh, I can't do it, but I can't not do it. So the boy came to his house, and the boy was like saying, I want you to be my dad. And so here he wants to be a dad so bad, but all the kids have been torn away from him. So he first was like, no, I can't be your dad. But then when the agency came back on the following Monday and said, no, he's somebody who is adoptable, his family doesn't want him back, we're going to have to find him a dad. Well, after a weekend of being with the kid, Peter was like, give me those papers. I want to be his dad. He wants me to be his dad. I want to be his dad. This is going to be a family. So just heartwarming stories like that. And I just am so happy to read a book about somebody who lives a life of growth, lives a life of honesty, lives a life of wanting to make a positive difference, and lives a life of gratefulness. So I would recommend the book Now I Am Known by Peter Mutabazi. I got this from the library, so I will be returning it soon, but you could check out the book from your own library as well. Thanks for watching Barb Talks.